You know, my context of this, David, isn't just money. Marshall introduced me to the writings of Buckminster Fuller. And I had blown off Bucky. You know, I knew who he was, geodesic dome. Guy talked about this great future. There's enough for everybody here. We're all citizens on planet Earth. You know, great. Love Bucky. And I blew him off. Marshall was a close friend of Bucky's. All right? Close friend towards the end of his life. And I ran into him in 1981. Martha spent a week at the seminar at Marshall's business school, and Bucky was there for a week. And I basically blew him off. Marshall was out, you know, I knew about it. Well, the year after I presented my paper at the Positive Viewing Network, because we met, the dues were $5,000 a year. We met 4 times a year. And the next year, Marshall had an event called Bucky's World Game. All right, so we're going to talk about Bucky there. This is a year after the collapse, because the collapse was in September 2007. No, the collapse was in 2008. This was 1 month after the collapse. 1 month. All right, so there we were in California, all meeting. The roof had fallen in. The year before, when I had warned about it, there was a lot of uptight people in that room. They were rich. You spend $5,000 a year to meet 4 times a year, just to meet with a bunch of people. These people have money. All right. One of the guys who saw the light started buying $10,000 worth of gold a month in 2007. All right. So 2008 comes along. The roof caved in, and they were freaked and they were scared. Well, Marshall had my friend, Professor Antal Fekete, come in from Hungary and give the keynote talk. All right? I don't know if you know about Professor Fekete, but his name's up. People know, you know, he's serious. And I was a friend of Antal's. All right? We've known each other since almost 20 years now. Okay? And I owe a lot of the way I see things to him. Very much into Austrian economics. He was a renegade, though. And he came and talked in California. But at that event, Marshall had us read Bucky Fuller's Critical Path. Bucky Fuller wrote 27 books. He's given the Presidential Medal of Honor. You know, and he was known. Invented the geodesic dome. You know, ceased the whole class of molecules, Buckminster fullerenes, they're named after him. All right. So there it is in 2008. And I had basically blown off Bucky. Nice guy, you know, but what does he have to do with me? Well, I'm reading the book for the first time, really. And Bucky said something that stunned me. He said, I made very sure my predictions were over 50 years in the future, because I didn't want to draw the attention of the power structure, who would see me as a threat. He said, instead, they found me curious. And they would trot me out in front of the media, in front of their friends, and I would make these outlandish predictions. And by so doing, a lot of people heard that I said a new world was possible, that there was enough for all. All right? Now, that book, Critical Path, the introduction, now, you got to realize, this is why it caught my attention. I'm a political science major. And I really am. All right? The introduction to Critical Path, published in 1981, 2 years before Bucky died, is titled Twilight of the World's Power Structures. The introduction to Critical Path, Twilight of the World's Power Structures. And this is what it said, 1981. Mankind is entering an unprecedented crisis that is universally intended to transform humanity from a presently competitive, differently speaking, differently colored, differently credoed group into an interdependent, cooperative whole, interharmonious whole. So, he said, what we're going through now is intended by the universe. This is not something we saw, you know, the Federal Reserve, all this. Bucky, which most people don't know about. I know a lot about Bucky now, all right? Bucky was brilliant. He was born to a what we call those lineage American families. Okay. Well, Bucky came from this. His forebears came over in the 1700s. Suffice it to say, long time before any of our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents came over. And in fact, his great-great-great-grandfather was in the Massachusetts Constitutional Delegation for a signer. Bucky's great-great-great-grandfather didn't sign the goddamn thing. He refused to sign it. You know why?
No.
It allowed for slavery. Black Lives Mattered to him in 1780, whatever it was. Black Lives Mattered to him enough that he refused to sign it. Okay? His son, another minister, another Fuller, goes to Harvard. Well, he went to Harvard too. He goes. This is how long the Harvard line goes through their family. He went to Harvard. He almost got kicked out because he led a student revolt against the requirement to pray before every meal and sit up straight. All right? That's the American spirit. That's the America that I care about. All right? So the Fullers were in that line. Okay? So Bucky Fuller down through the time. Time for him to go to school. Smart kid. Comes from a whole line of brainish thinkers, and they get the money. They send him off to Harvard. Okay, 1890. He was born in 1895. So he goes to Harvard. Well, Bucky is only 5 feet 2 inches tall. He wears thick glasses, and he's got a hearing problem. Not quite a Segal man, is he? Not quite a Delta asshole Kappa, is he? Is he? No, he doesn't look like they want you to look like. So he didn't get admitted to any of the drinking clubs. So Bucky took the money and went to New York and spent it on showgirls. Kicked out of Harvard. Okay. Well, a couple years later, the kid's bright. All right. They decide to put some more money, send him again. Goes to Harvard, shows up, applies to the drinking clubs. He hasn't grown any. Glasses are still thick. Ain't a Segal boy, Delta Phi Kappa crap asshole, out. Goes to New York, spends it on showgirls. He's kicked out, and this time permanently barred from Harvard on moral grounds. Okay? Well, he's so smart, meets a girl in New York. This is a love match. Ann Hewitt. Father was a very famous New York architect. And they have 2 kids. This is right before the pandemic. Right? Give you some context. And she was sickly. She was born sickly, spinal meningitis, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a Harvard-Yale game. And he went to the game. And before they left, they were at the train station, and his daughter says, "Daddy, will you bring me back a cane?" They had those cane on pennants, the Harvard thing on the wall. She went away. And he said he would. So he goes to the game. Harvard wins. Goes back, parties with his friends. Coming back, calls up. He's in Long Island. They live out there. And he finds out that his daughter's very, very, very ill. Doctor's been there. He gets there. She's in a coma. He has her in his arms, and she opens up her eyes, and he goes, "Daddy, did you bring me back the cane, the pennant?" He had forgotten. She closed her eyes and never woke up.
Oh, man.
Huh? One of those moments. One of those moments. 2 years later, Bucky is drinking heavily, all right? His business is in disarray. They have another kid, and he comes to the conclusion that his family would be better off without him. And he decides to commit suicide. So he's standing on the shores of Lake Michigan, thinking about swimming out there and just doing himself in. And the next thing he knows, he's suspended 10 feet in the air, surrounded by light. And he hears a voice. And the voice says, "This isn't your life to throw away." He said, "Everything you think is true." And he said, if you dedicate your life to helping your fellow man, I will take care of you. Next 2 years, Bucky went into silence. barely spoke to anybody. Barely his wife. Went into silence. That's silence. Inside. And when he came out, he became the Bucky Fuller that we all know now. Could predict things, saw things, wrote things, had the generosity spirit, and never worked once again for his own intention. Never once, he said, wrote to make money, worked to make money. He followed, he said, because every time he tried to screw up. And every time he didn't, it worked out better. You know what Marshall told me at the end? Because he knew Bucky when he was in his late 70s, early 80s. He said he sat down with Bucky once. And Bucky, on I think the full moon of every month, gave away all his money.
Gave away all his money every month?
All his money. Donated it. He said that was his contract with God. The universe. He didn't call it God, he called it the universe. That universe said, if you work for your fellow human beings, I will take care of you. And Bucky said he did in spades. So that's when I found out about Bucky, reading about it. So when I hold this collapse in that context, I believe what Bucky said, that this collapse is a part of a far greater shift, a crisis of monumental proportions. Monumental. We're only beginning of it. You and I are eating well still, I hope.
Yeah.
There are those of us who are sitting there looking at that extension of the unemployment benefits scared shitless as the boys in Washington, D.C. play Russian roulette with their future. This is only the beginning. This is a plague, a real plague. There's locusts all over the Middle East. All right? The earth changes are accumulating. They're getting bigger. This is a shift. And you know what? It's going to turn out better. It's going to turn out better for everybody. But the slate's going to be clean. One of my sayings is the pendulum of change is going to be a wrecking ball. For many. For others, it won't be. For others, it won't be. For many, it will. Life is not accidental. You are not where you are by accident. No one is. Everyone. My uncle, one of my uncles, he died in his 90s, all right? You know? And he said, before, this is like 8 years ago, he said, everything is in its right place. He said, everybody is where they are for a reason. And I went, wow, I didn't get it. But that's what he believed. And I think it's true. Life, we think, in one of my conversations with Jeffrey, I just watched it, one of my interviews, and he was talking, and Jeffrey goes, Darryl, Jung said that. And I said, what? He said, synergy. I know what synergy is, but I never heard it in the way Jeffrey said. And I said, what? He said, well, Jung said synergy meant the universe is alive. Wow. I never thought of synergy that the universe was alive. And I know it's true. We think we're in this mechanistic thing that we're king shit. We got a toilet, we can run out of toilet paper maybe, but we're pretty much king of the pile. And he said, no, it's alive. It knows who we are. And Bucky said this in his book, Critical Path. Mankind is in final exam for continuation in the universe. Bucky came to the conclusion that there's a reason for everything, that this is not chaos. There's a reason. There's a universal force that's intelligent, that has an intention, all right, that has an intention for this. And he said, he thought about, well, then why are we here? What is mankind's purpose in this? And he said, well, we're problem solvers. That's what he came to. We're localized problem solvers. And up to now, we've been problem creators. All right? We're problem creators. And Bucky said, mankind is now in final exam as to whether it will be allowed to continue in the universe. And he said, this is not a decision that's going to be made religiously, politically, economically, or by government. It's going to be made by each one of us in our hearts. And the cut is this. Do you want the happiness and welfare of your fellow human beings as much as you want your own? That's it. Now, I don't know if Bucky's right. You know, I mean, I read it. I read a lot of things, David. I read a lot of things. All right? But I'm inclined to believe I would give it an even chance. I'd certainly keep that card on the table and look at it every once in a while. All right? And this is a person I never even knew the depth of his thinking until 2008 when Marshall had that thing. But I don't think it's any accident. I don't think when Marshall split up Critical Path and we're all going to read 1/10 of the book, I was in that group that read Bucky's thing in 1/10 of Critical Path, that where he said he made sure his predictions were 50 years in the future. I don't think it was by accident. I'm a political science major. I smell power. I look for it. I had blown this guy off as some, positive, nice-hearted genius. But no relevance to what I was thinking about. I've read that book so often. I had so many little yellow tags, that stick out the end, out of the back, that they were irrelevant. You look at it, there's so many footnotes sticking out of it that it doesn't matter anymore. You don't know what to look for. So that's where I am. So when you ask, is it going to get better? Yes, it's going to get better, but not the way most people hope. I know what most people are hoping. I know that most slaves on the debt farm are hoping that NASA's going to get a refi in London. Because if you don't get a refi, we're going to starve. We're going to starve. Massa, I hope you get the refi. And we all pray, Massa's going to get a refi in London. So he'll be able to keep the debt plantation, and we're going to keep working there and get our meals a day and our kids sold out from under us and get whipped, but we know we're going to eat. That's a nasty attitude I have, but you happen to catch me on a certain day.
Your energy is incredible.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I want to tell you this. When I watched your very first video, you reminded me, I told Dan, you reminded me a cross between Robert Kiyosaki and Steven Segal.
Bob Kiyosaki was at that week that Martha was in Kirkland Meadows at Marshall's Business School, that Bucky was there. And Bob Kiyosaki said, this old guy sits down next to him. Everybody knew who this guy was. Just sat down next to him and said, what do you want to do? And Kiyosaki said, you make money, get power, And he says something Bucky told him changed his whole life. Changed his whole life. And out of that conversation came his writing later of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He was there that week. I was there too. I went up there. Marshall always trying to get me into Bucky. I drive up there. I got other things on my mind, but I know who Bucky is. So I go in there one morning to listen to this guy, and everybody's really sitting there very quiet. This guy, and I got bored. Bucky talked, when people have a hearing problem, they don't talk like, it's very different. And it was very complicated, and I had no patience. So I decided that on the other side, they had split the room down, and on the other side of the curtain, they had all these computers. So I decided to go play that video game Pong, all right? And so I go over to the other side of the curtain, and I turn on my computer, and I thought I turned the sound off, but I evidently hadn't. Because when I start playing my video game, all of a sudden you hear ping, boom, in the other side of the curtain. And pretty soon, one of the guys runs over, he's screaming at me, what are you doing? So that was my encounter with Bucky's event. But he was a great man. And he is a great man. And I consider him one of the luminaries of these times. All right? And I consider I'm really, really lucky. I am lucky. I'm one of the luckiest people I know. And I remember telling that to somebody in 1983, 2 years before I was going to get a 10-year prison sentence. And we were in Rome. All right. And I'd gone from nothing to staying at a suite at the Hassler Hotel, which is the finest hotel in Rome. All right. And I meet this guy in the airplane, and I'm coming down off of acid. I hadn't taken acid in 10 years. I was at the Forum that morning, and I wasn't getting it. I mean, I wasn't getting it. And I thought maybe acid would help. I'm pretty much down, so he doesn't know I'd taken that day. I'm not going to tell him. And I just met him in the airplane, and this guy goes, he said, we didn't know each other that well. I mean, we had a very interesting conversation on the plane. That's why he invited me to his house. Very wealthy guy. And I said, Andrea, I'm the luckiest person I know. And my life hasn't been easy, but I'm the luckiest person I know. And Franchetti looked at me and he said, what is luck? And these words came out of my mouth. And the words were, luck is love's reflection shining in your path. And I mean that. There was a poem I wrote when I was in prison that talked about that. And I think I wrote it right after I saw somebody with AIDS. This is when the AIDS pandemic was going on in the late 1980s. And I saw him in prison. And the words were, I've seen the dying live. I've seen the living die. I've heard your unasked questions as to what and where and why. But I cannot tell you that, which is not mine to say, for each and every one of you must find yourselves this way. I know that sometimes it may seem that love is but a lie, that love is but a dream, that only lives to die. But I know that love is real, but I cannot show it to you, for each and every one of you must find yourselves this way. I've seen the dying live, I've seen the living die. I have heard your unasked questions as to what and where and why, but I cannot tell you that, which is not mine to say, for each and every one of you must find yourselves this way. This is where we are. We're not who we think we are. It isn't what we think it is. We're projecting machines, but we're God projecting machines. We're cosmos projecting machines. But because of what has happened to the planet, and there are reasons for it, deep metaphysical reasons, it's pretty well fucked up right now. But it's being set right. It's being set right. And that which originated us all loves all parts of it itself. Free will is a part of the deal. Mm-hmm. All right? I'm not sure I would have given that right if it was up to me. All right? But it was given that deal. And I've always said that free will is a two-edged sword. And until you find the handle, you're going to bleed like a mother.
Wow, yeah.
One of the things that I've talked to Dan is in the last 30 years, today's world feels so much different than just 30 years ago. Do you notice the change?
Man! 30 years ago was 1910. I mean 1990. 1 year later, I heard those words. There was a normalcy there, but it was an artificial normalcy. All right? It was a point in time and space of tremendous credit. Credit. What did credit do? I had a joke in my mind. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen that picture of the evolution of mankind, the ape coming out of the tree, then he's standing up taller, then he's walking, and maybe he has a suit, whatever that is. All right? Another thing came to my mind. It was called the evolution of the immigrant.
By the way, the ape was Dan.
Oh, we all were. Yeah, we all were. And the same poster, but with a different figure, and it was called the evolution of the immigrant. All right, and their first immigrants coming over were from Europe and trying to make money. And they worked hard, and they got it, and they got jobs, and they weren't poor anymore. They either were working in a factory or they were executives or whatever, and they all had money. And what happened to those immigrants was when they had something, they started keeping other immigrants out of here. All right? They were now the haves. They had forgotten the fight of why their great-grandparents had come over. They had forgotten not having. They had, and if they didn't have, they thought they had because they had a credit card. They thought they had. All right? And so they began resentful of any debit on that card that came out of their credit card. All right? That's the thing of the immigrants. I mean, I was sitting there. I was in Phuket, Thailand, probably 78 or 82, somewhere around there. And I was at a resort, and I saw a book. It was a series of, and I picked it out because I thought I must know the guy's grandson. I didn't know what it was. But the name on the book was Thin Book in Thailand, in a resort way out there. It was by a guy named Carl Lotus Becker. Right? Carl Lotus Becker. Well, the reason why I pulled it out, in fact, he just alluded to that last week in an email to me. All right? We're both hippies. And his name was Carl Jaden Becker, CJ Becker. We knew him as CJ. He turned me on the I Ching. All right? I knew CJ's intellectual provenance. It was rather extraordinary. His grandfather on one side was a neurophysiologist, all right, known for his books on the biology of the brain. The grandfather on the other side was a famous historian. Never knew who he was. Clearly, Carl Lotus Becker, because this is a book on lectures given at the University of Ohio, okay, in the 1920s. And the lecture that he gave at the time was talking about when America no longer needed immigrants to work in its factories, no longer needed the vast unwashed and the desperate and the hungry, when we didn't need them. And he had no answer, but he raised the question. What was going to happen? Well, what is it? 80 years later, we're watching what he said, all right? And it's just how it is. It's human nature. And what I'm grateful for more than anything, not that what I know, because knowing the things I know has been a burden. It's been a tremendous burden, all right? But had I not been given the bigger context, which may be illusion, you know, we're all sort of crazy. You know, your friend Dan isn't the only one who's crazy in the eight. I mean, we all are, you know? We all have our own stuff and our own explanations for it.
I thought I was perfect, man.
Yeah, you know? But that life has given me, along with the burden, another explanation. All right? An explanation that has allowed me to carry the suffering, the dysfunctionality, the inhumanity of man to man in a way that I can live with it. I can see my way past the problem to a better day because I know what it looks like. I see the same thing you do. We all do. But we take from it different things. All right? In fact, I'm a little more anal than most people. You know, I spoke at a conference and all these right-wing people, they loved me. You know why? Because I talked about gold and money. They knew I was right. They loved me. And they were paranoid as shit. They were sure everybody's going to, yeah. Obamacare, all that kind of stuff. And I got up there. I didn't know what to say. In fact, I didn't even want to go talk to them, like I didn't want to talk to you. All right? This is 2014. And I got up there and I drilled an asshole for them. Not in a way that they knew was an asshole, but I showed them more about a world to be paranoid from that they even knew. All right? I said, you know about the Bilderbergers? How many of you know about the 1001 Club? None of them did. And I knew it. That morning, Turd Ferguson got up. You know, I don't know if you know T.F. Ferguson. All right? He got up. There was one of the speakers. There was one of the people on that panel kicked me off his website years before. All right? Years before. And Ferguson gets up. I never met him before. Didn't even know who he was. I don't read most of the people out there. All right? But he was there. And he goes, all right. He said, I got a Turd Ferguson t-shirt. Turd first t-shirt. Whoever answers this question is going to win my t-shirt. What year did the IMF sell 2 million ounces of gold? People start raising their hands. They were guessing. Why? They had no idea. Just like most people who get on the internet, put their opinion out there and have no motherfucking idea. Doesn't stop them from the goddamn answer saying they think they have an idea. They were just wildly guessing. And I'm sitting there going, well, he was either 1975 or 1976. All right? And I wasn't sure what year. All right? Because one year, I found out later that in 1975, when gold was shooting up, the United States announced it was going to sell all of this gold to try and keep the price down. And then the next year, the IMF announced it was going to sell 2 million ounces. And I didn't know what year those years were. I knew it was in the 70s. So I raised my hand and I said 1976. I get the t-shirt. I walk up there and I get it. And to me, that established my credibility. I didn't give a fuck about whether they thought of me as being credible or not. I didn't give a shit ass a day of what they thought about me. And most of them didn't even know what I really thought. What I really thought. And I got up there and I gave my little talk. All these paranoid people. And you know what? I doubt if any of them Googled 1001 Club. Because they were satisfied with Obama, with the Clintons, with whatever they were running through their goddamn fevered, herpes-inflamed brains. I knew I wasn't going to change them. But I just had to say my piece. And I did. So, 2020, you call me up, get an email. Here we are.
Yeah, well, thank you. And if you could, if your voice could change them, what would you tell people today that they should be doing?
You know, I wrote, all my bylines on my articles were buy gold, buy silver, have faith. And I'm not trying to get them to survive. If anything, I would align that with the universe's purpose of trying to get them to become who they really are, to move past their fears, to move out of the small space that they consider themselves to be and their fellow human beings and the universe and see it for what it is. But I know they can't hear that. So you know, what am I going to say? Reach for that higher self. Meditate. Yeah.
Right. It comes down to fear, doesn't it?
Fear. Well, listen. 1976. I don't know if you ever heard a book called A Course in Miracles. Okay. It was channeled. I found it through my friend Marshall's. 17 languages all around the world now. And I'd been doing a bunch of affirmations on peace at this time. That book gets laid in my lap before it's published because of Marshall. And I'm at his group. We did affirmations, they did. And I go, man, where did this book come from? And the guy opens it up, and this is it, the foreword to the Course in Miracles. It said, this is a manual for peace. It is a required course. However, this is a manual for peace. It is a required course. Free will does not mean you establish the curriculum. It merely means you choose what to take at a given time. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing your blocks to your awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of fear is love. However, that which is all-encompassing has no opposite. Herein lies the peace of God. That which is real can never be threatened, and that which is unreal does not exist. That was the foreword. I ran across those words in 1976. They've never left me.
Obviously not.
I don't know what to say to people. You know, I was talking on an interview last week and talking about taking acid in law school. He goes, do you think other people should take acid? Because I know this guy drops. And I go, no. I can't say, I can't tell anybody to do anything. I'm not here to tell people what to do or not to do. I don't know what I'm here for.
I was gonna say,
Jesus Christ.
what are we here for?
Well, your hope in our fellow citizens and humanity is bigger than mine, Darryl, because I don't think people will get off their couch to change anything.
No, they won't. But they will. No, not willingly, David. Not willingly. But they will get off their motherfucking couch because I've been forced off of mine.
Yeah. I understand. I understand. Let me ask you another
I
question.
didn't willingly either.
What's that?
I didn't get off my couch willingly either. I was forced off that couch. And thank God I was. But I was always given a little bit of incentive. You know, I was always given a chance to sit there or not. And the way those choices were presented to me, I did. And part of it was my nature. Part of it was my nature to get off that couch. But the choices were presented in such a way that I was able to make a choice to do so. And I think that's the advantage I had over most people. What's going to happen today? I was given the choices in a context where my assent meant something. I think today that choice is going to be made against their choice. Time's up.
Amen. Yeah. Well, there's so much. Yeah. I think that's, I think you're right.
If I was going to give anybody advice, it might be this. Listen to your heart. Don't listen to your mind. Your mind will tell you whatever you want to hear. It's an incredible device. Listen to your heart. Your heart will tell you not what your mind wants to hear. Your heart will tell you what you need to hear. And in these times, that's the only thing that's going to get you through. Not gold, not silver, but your heart. We're going to be forced to level. The choice is ours, whether we do or not, because this is a free will universe. But the choice not to up-level is going to be horrific.
Absolutely.
You know, and I want the best for everybody, but I've run out of patience. I've run out of patience.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, I've watched a bunch of your videos. I've listened to your words, and I mean, you've said everything that you can say.
You know, I never expected to be saying this stuff. I wonder why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, I pretty much years ago decided to shut off myself from the rest of from it. All right, talking to people. When the psychic told me that I was people would be calling me up, I was enraged at that point. I mean, bitter, enraged. All right. One of my friends, you know, when I came out of prison, I'm sure one of my friend told me that people would come up and say, you know, because they knew that he knew me. They knew that he was talking to me. And they said, how's Darryl? This is in the 1990s. He said, just like when I met him, pissed off. I had met John on the steps of the draft board in Oakland in 1967. All right? I had dropped out of law school. I had gotten my draft notice. I had a way out. I had I had a way to not go to the war through the National Guard. It was offered to me. And I said, fuck them. Fuck them. They're not going to make me even do that. So I pushed it. I got my little notice. And I went over and I dropped acid that day. All right? So I'm driving over my 53 Chevy pickup truck across the Bay Bridge. Starting to come on. All right? Whoosh! Take the exit off. Park in the parking lot. Park the car. And start walking up the steps. You know, the back steps. And I'm late. Pretty much late. And I get to the top and this guy's sitting there. I had no idea he was stoned on STP, which is even stronger than acid. All right? And he said, you know, motion me, sit down beside me. I don't think anything's by accident. including us talking today. And I sat down next to him. We became very, very good friends. Things happened between us decades later. And we didn't always agree. In fact, we didn't agree on a whole lot of stuff, but we were hippies that time. He died with hundreds of millions of dollars. He was wealthy, okay? And was generous, more generous in death than he'd been in life. He couldn't be generous in life. All right? And now it's time to go in. So we go up, we stand up, we walk in there, and they had tape on the floor and the instructions. If you were inducted in the Army, follow the green tape. If you were here, then follow the yellow tape, follow the red tape. So we're sitting there, I'm stoned looking at it, and my friend reaches down and starts pulling the tape off the floor. All right? My boy, my man. All right? That started our friendship. He came to my house. I had no idea that he had looked down. He's very smart, sharper than I am, faster than I am. And he watched when I wrote my address down, you know, because you had to fill out, or looked at my draft papers. And then my address, 1734 Haight Street. He looked at it and didn't forget. 1 month later, I looked down, he's waving at me outside the gate. Such is life. Such is destiny. Such is truth. Such is a path of love. And it's carrying all of us, whether we know it or not. I'm just lucky to know it. And I didn't before. I was as paranoid and uptight as anybody. Until there's still some residual. I'm not free of that stuff. You know, part of me is still enraged. But you know what? I know that at a very deep level, the DNA of life itself is love. You know? And you can read that in a book, but you don't know it because you read it in a book. You don't know it because you heard it on TV or YouTube and some guy said it. You know it because something in you opened your eyes. And our eyes are never opened willingly. All right? They're forced open. We're so scared shitless. We're so wound down. We're so uptight. You know? Don't make me wake up. I don't want to see. My joke was we're carried kicking and streaming into the presence of God. Leonard Cohen had a line. To every heart, love will come, but as a refugee. So be it. That's the path. We're just lucky there's a path.
Well, I think people have to make a conscious effort to, like you said, use your heart and try to make the most of each and every day.
You know, all I can say is this. The problems that we face, each one of us individually, and we have hellacious problems. They've turned up the burner. All right? The goddamn oven's on high. You know, we used to be on simmer. Now they turn it up to broil.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's on Front Street. Because you asked me what I would say to people. To those who can hear this, those problems that are in front of us are the key to the world that you want. The relationship that's not working for you is to the key, the love that you're looking to find. The problem that relationship is bringing to your face, front and center, are your issues. They are triggering your issues. They are triggering emotions in you that you need to move through, that you need to allow and not dump on that other person and shoot them in rage. You need to go by yourself. If you're afraid of abandonment, if you're afraid of life, you're afraid of loss of control, whatever this reality is bringing up for you, my advice is, for those of you who can hear it, that's a key to your liberation. Go by yourself. Let the feelings come up and just feel them. Because those are feelings that you've refused to feel since eternity. And now it's truth time. And they're not going to be sitting there in that closet anymore. They're not content to be locked up by you in your subconscious. They're not content. They got to get out. They're dying to get out. And they're dying to get out to such a degree that if you don't let them out, they're going to kill you. metaphorically, literally, figuratively. That's where we're at as a race and as people. And I want to say something. That little hint came to me 1986, 1987. And I mellowed out since that time. So you can see where I was then. That's a long time ago. And I learned about feelings. I learned about emotions. You know, one of my sayings is, prison was a cage I'd learned to share with my feelings. You know what? Being male, being an Aquarian, and being Chinese, I used to make a joke. You know, there's not even a character in the Chinese language for emotions. It's
Really?
not true. My joke was, there's not even a character in the Chinese language for emotions.
Yeah.
That's not true. But that's how foreign they were to me. I was forced to confront them, but given subtitles so I'd know that's what I was supposed to do. So I've been letting them out of the out of the bag, out of the cellar for close to 35, 40 years. And if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be here. The fact that I have any semblance of stability, focus, wherewithal is because of that process. And I know it's alien to most everybody listening to this. And I learned that in a book that I doubt if most people are going to read. Very few people ever read it. It was a book called Right Use of Will. It was channeled from source. It was the thing that gave me the clue. And 7 books were channeled. I was in prison for 7 years. You know, I read every one of those books. And I didn't read them in the same way I would have read them as if I was on the outside staying at the Hassler Hotel in Paris. You know, oh man, let's get some pasta tonight. Nope, had my attention. That's what I needed. That was my path. Everyone's got a path.
It forced you to slow down, Darryl.
You know what I wrote my kids? This is what I love my kids. They're old man's in prison. And this is one of the things I wrote them. Held still against my will, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Nonetheless, it was a very strange way to learn how to relax. You caught it. You saw it. That's why I wrote my kids that. Kids are in school, dad's in the slam, and that's what he writes them. Held still against my will, it wasn't as bad as I thought, but nonetheless, it was a very strange way to learn how to relax.
Well, I hope we can talk again.
So, you overcome my trepidation about talking to you.
Well, thank you. I'm very grateful that you gave your time and energy to me. Thank you.
I'm grateful that you called me.
Yeah, it's no, I mean, there's. I know this sounds strange, but I mean, I felt the connection to you right away, and I knew we'd get along, and I thank you, and I think that I know that I got a lot out of this, and I can't speak for Dan, but I figured he would as well, and that's why we're both here.
And at the minimum, I got something off my chest.
Absolutely.
That I needed to.
Well, please, let's do it again.
I'm on.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, David. Yeah, very good. Listen, you know what I came up with when I was in China, and they go, do you speak, because that was the time that Chinese did not understand that Chinese couldn't speak Chinese. I mean, this is in the 60s, 70s. They didn't even see Chinese out of China. And every Chinese person they knew spoke Chinese. All right? And there I am. And, them motherfuckers, boy, are they pig-headed. All right? So the Cantonese way of dealing with that is Segal, which means you speak, you understand.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you'd say Segal. All right? I don't speak, I don't understand. That's Cantonese.
Budong, chicken budong.
Yeah. Well, I came up with a third phrase, but I couldn't get any fucking Chinese person to tell me it because they knew my intent as Martha said, was not good. My answer was Msek, Ngong, Nganyu. 25, 30 years later, a waitress in a restaurant in San Diego told my uncle that's what the last phrase I was looking for. And what it translates is, I don't speak, I don't understand, and I don't care.
Huh. Wow.
Thank you.
You guys.
And thanks to Mary. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.